So you've got your air conditioner running or your heater and you're blowing your fan. It's coming great through the defroster, but it's not coming through the dash vents or the floor vents. Like mine, a lot of vehicles control the climate controls with the use of a vacuum. It's probably your problem. That was mine. So we're going to go through the vacuum system here. We can begin here with the climate controls for the vent and defrost AC, etc. Just above that on the dash center, you'll see a panel. Go ahead and pry that open with a screwdriver or something. Inside that, you'll see a bunch of vacuum lines, a harness connecting those lines, and a couple of cylinders. Those are actual plungers, vacuum switches that open and control the vents. You'll also notice a black vacuum line. Now, if you were to follow that black vacuum line through the dash, you'd find it down here. Here we are at the foot of the passenger. Going into the firewall, you could see black plastic grid. That's actually the vent that lets in fresh air. There's another vent plunger controller, and that black vacuum line you can see goes into a rubber grommet that follows and goes through the firewall. You could pull that rubber grommet out carefully and see that the vacuum line does go and continue into the engine compartment. If you could see where it came into the engine compartment, you can see that it connects up to a vacuum pump and vacuum reservoir. Ford buried the reservoir and pump so far down that you either have to cut out sheet metal, spend about 10 hours, or $700 in labor to get to it. So forget about that for now. Just forget about it. In any case, the auxiliary vacuum pump and the canister are down there, buried below that squirrel fan and all the ductwork for the AC, and just above the wheel well. Continuing on from the vacuum reservoir, you could follow that black vacuum line up towards the top of the engine compartment, and it can be found right about where you see the fill up for the oil. There you can see there's a connection from the black vacuum line to a red vacuum line, which also has some plastic protective covering to it. Following that red vacuum line back in the direction my finger is pointing, you'd find it connecting to the top of the engine, basically top center, the manifold there, and that's where it connects to the engine and receives vacuum. Here we'll get a look at where it connects up into the engine. This is from the inside of the vehicle. We'll zoom in here and you can see where the vacuum lines connect to the engine. There at the top you can see the single line that's covered in the plastic. That's the one we're working with. The other ones are not necessary for this repair. So, quick overview in reverse now. We have the main line that's coming off the vacuum of the engine that connects to a black vacuum line in the engine compartment. Then that flows down into the auxiliary vacuum pump and reservoir buried down there. That connects through the firewall and comes out the firewall near the passenger feet. And then that black vacuum line continues up into the dash and goes to the control panel. That black vacuum line actually goes to the harness here, and that in turn controls the switch. And that's the system in general. Now we're ready to do a little bit of testing, troubleshooting to make sure we can pinpoint where exactly the problem is. I'd start by testing out the vent controls, those cylinders, those metal cylinders with plungers. Manually go ahead and plunge the plunger and make sure the vents open and close, just to make sure that's not the problem. You'll find a couple of those plunger switches up there in the center vent on the top of the dash, but you also don't forget about the one near the passenger foot, near the firewall, near that vent down there. Try that one out too, make sure that one's working. Assuming those mechanical plungers are all working, we're going to go ahead and continue looking at the vacuum side of the problem. I'm going to start with the red main vacuum line that's coming off the engine. I'm going to go to the engine compartment, disconnect that. Then I'm going to take that red vacuum line, I'm going to kind of pull it back from the inside of the compartment and then feed it up through into the vent control area where the harness is located for all the controls. Now I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the vacuum line harness and go ahead and attach the red main line coming off the engine. We're just going to go from nipple to nipple basically with the engine started, and we're going to work the controls. By process of elimination, we'll figure out which is which, and we're just going to go through them all and make sure they all work. If you go nipple to nipple and you find that all the controls are working, then you know everything's good from that vacuum point on. So what we're left with is a little bit of an answer. We know that either the vacuum pump, the vacuum reservoir, or the black vacuum lines are bad. Now you may get lucky and it might be one of those black vacuum lines. You might be able to hear the hiss. You might be able to cut it out and replace it with a little bit of replacement line. In which case, go for it. You're done. However, you probably won't be as lucky. It's probably the vacuum pump or the reservoir, which again is buried so far that you don't want to deal with it. Okay, so let's get these vents working. Since we don't want to get into removing the reservoir, let's just go ahead and bypass the whole darn thing. So we start at the foot area of the passenger side where the black vacuum line goes into that rubber grommet through the firewall. I'm going to go ahead and snip that right there. And having gone to the store already and gotten a properly sized vacuum line replacement, we go ahead and slip one end onto the vertical part of the black vacuum line that goes up into the dash. The other end of the new vacuum line has to go into the engine compartment, so you have to find a way to get it in there. I decided just to drill a hole in the side here and feed it through. Ideally, you would use a rubber grommet to protect it. Once you've got the new end of the vacuum hose line through into the engine compartment, you can go ahead and hook it up into the main red vacuum line. With everything connected up, go ahead and start your engine, go through the controls, and test everything. You should be good to go. You just effectively bypass that auxiliary vacuum pump as well as the reservoir. Confirm everything is good, go ahead and tidy up your lines, get them out of the way and protected, and close everything up and you're good to go. As a little bit of a side note, if you notice that your air conditioning or heater coming through the vents kind of shuts off when you're under hard acceleration, that's another indication that you have a vacuum problem. Didn't know that at the time. For the last year my van's been doing that, but now with hindsight it's pretty obvious. There you go. Not too difficult actually of a DIY project. Can save you hundreds of dollars of labor. Rather than taking it into the shop, you can do it yourself. Go for it. Now you'll have heat and air conditioning coming through the vents. The simple pleasures of life.